And here we start chapter 3. We're looking at 3.1. We are doing factoring of polynomial expressions. Hey, I know, everyone's favorite thing. Let's do some factoring. Let's practice it up. Let's remind you how to do it. Start with an easy one. Factor this trinomial, x squared minus 4x minus 21. Well, before we actually get to factoring, let's do the opposite. Let's expand. Let's remind you what to do there. So let's take something like, I don't know, x minus 2x plus 4. Let's expand that. So x times the x gives us x squared. X times the 4 gives us plus 4x. Then we've got the negative 2 times the x, there we go, minus 2x. And we've got negative 2 times the 4. So that gives us negative 8. We can collect those like terms. The middle two, they both have an x in them. Let's collect those up. And we come up with x squared plus 2x minus 8. We're going to work backwards now. So if I go in this direction, I call that expanding. If I go backwards, I call that factoring. So all we're doing now is we're saying, okay, what two binomials were multiplied together to give us this trinomial in this question? So to remind you now, that 2x, that was made up of, the two yellow parts here, the 4x and the negative 2x. But in the simple form, that came up with the positive 4 and the negative 2 added together. So that was 4. So positive 4 plus a negative 2. That 8 now, that negative 8, that's made up of the same two numbers, but instead this time they're multiplied together. Positive 4 times negative 2. So we've got our sum product factoring. Sum, that's our middle term. So the sum of these is negative 4. What two numbers add together to give negative 4 that multiply together to give actually the one that's in front there, 1x squared, 1 times the negative 21. So the product of these two numbers is going to be 1 times negative 21, which is negative 21. So I notice, oh yeah, I need a negative product. One of them has to be positive, one of them has to be a negative, and they also, the larger of those two numbers, we got to have more negatives. So it's going to be negative 7 and a positive 3. So factored form is x minus 7, x plus 3. And it doesn't matter which order we write them in. The two factors multiply in any order. All right. Question number 1. Is d minus 4 a factor of each trinomial? Well, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, your book shows you one method. I highly recommend you read through what they're saying so you can see their method and their logic. Another way of doing it is, why don't we factor it and see if d minus 4 is one of the factors that we get. Okay, so I really like the lesson that they give you in the book there. It's a great lesson in algebra. Look at it. The more things you have in your bag of tricks, the better off you're going to be algebraically. But we're going to factor this one. We've got a 2 that can be factored out of each. The first step of factoring is always make sure you look for a GCF. We've got one here. We got a 2. Let's factor that 2 out. D squared plus 3d minus 28. And again, we're looking. Sum is that middle term, 3. Product is the first term times the last term. 1 times negative 28, negative 28. Give me two numbers. Multiply to negative 28, add to 3. No. One's got to be a positive, one's got to be a negative to get to the 28. And I need more positives this time because I've got a positive 3. So I got to get more positives, and I need 3 more positives. 2 numbers we're looking for are going to be 7, negative 4. All right. 2 times d plus 7, d minus 4. Oh, look at here. Yep-a-doozers. D minus 4. Yes, it is. So make sure you mention that. They asked you, is it? Yes, it is. Let's do the same thing here. But whoa, wait a minute. We've got no common factor of the 3. We're going to have to use decomposition method of factoring. Let's remind you of that. Jumping back to the expanding I did here, if we went backwards and did factoring, 2x was our middle term. That was decomposed or made up of a positive 4x and a negative 2x. We're going to be doing that. As we're going through the factoring, we're actually going to include that middle step there. So my sum is the middle term, 13. Don't take the d with it for the sum. The product is the first term multiplied by the last term. So 3 times 4, which is 12. Factors. Give me 2 numbers again now. Multiply to 12. Add to 13. Thinking. Oh, 12 and 1. Those are not going to be straight to my answer now. Those are going to just be the middle term broken up. So I'm going to take my first term, 3d squared, drop it down. I'm going to keep my plus 4 way on the end, drop it down. I'm going to decompose the middle term into the 2 things of my factors. That 13d is made up of positive, whichever order. I could go to 12d plus 1d or 1d plus 12d. I'm going to just change it up the order, 1d plus 12d. Does not matter. I've got 4 terms now in there. I'm going to section off the first 2, section off the second 2. I'm going to take out a GCF from each of them. So GCF out of the first 2. Oh, I can pull a d out. Leaves me with 3d plus 1. And in the second ones, oh, hey, they both can divide by 4. So I'm going to factor out a 4. Got to think positive or negative now. Well, I'm going to take out a positive 4 and see what that does. We've got to get those in the brackets to be exactly the same thing. If you don't get the same thing in these 2 brackets, you did something wrong. Those now both have that as a factor. I'm going to bring it out in front, factor it out in front. 3d plus 1 bracket leaves me with a d plus a 4. So there's the factored form. 3d plus 1, d plus 4. Whoa, wait a minute. None of them is d minus 4, so no go on this one. No, it is not a factor. Question number 2. Oh, lovely, lovely. We've got decimals, we've got fractions. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. What we gonna do here? Well, first thing, let's deal with the decimal one. I've got 1 decimal place. That's the most I have. So what we're going to do, if we've got to do ones that have 1 decimal place, we could either factor that out, or we could change it to a fraction and deal with the denominator. I'm going to kind of factor out the 1 decimal place. Meaning, when we factor out, factor out means divide out. So I'm going to divide out 1 decimal place, or 0.1. Okay. This is a 1x squared in front. 1 divided by 0.1 is actually 10. 10x squared. Minus 1.5 divided by 0.1 gives me 15x. 0.5 divided by 0.1 gives me 5. Yes, I got rid of all my decimals, but I still now have a GCF I can pull out. I could pull out a 5 out of all of those. I'm going to use a square bracket here. Leaves me with 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. Now we're going to combine these two in front. Let's multiply those ones up. 0.5 times 5, that's going to leave me with 0.5 times 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. Now I'm going to do my factoring, but I'm going to keep that 0.5 kicking it all the way in front. So sum equals the middle term, negative 3. Product equals the 2 times the 1. So 2 times 1 equals 2. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply the 2 and add to negative 3. The only way for this to work is for both of them to be negatives. And they're going to be a negative 2 and a negative 1. Let's bring those in, and we're decomposing that middle term up into the two parts. So let's keep our 0.5 kicking in front. 2x squared stays there. Plus 1 stays on the end. Break up that middle term into negative 2x and a negative 1x. All right, same thing. Group off the first two, group off the second two. Factor out any GCFs you got. So 0.5. Let's use a square bracket again here because I'm going to keep factoring inside there. I can pull out a 2x out of these ones. Leaves me with x minus 1. Now, you always have to pull something out. Even if it's a plus 1 or if it's a minus 1, you have to factor out something. Notice I don't have the same order of plus, positive, and negatives. Positive, negative, negative, positive. I need them to be in the same order. The only way to get them in the same order is to factor out a negative here. There's nothing else I can factor out other than a 1. That's going to change the sign from a negative x into a positive x. From a positive 1 into a negative 1. Oh, looky here. That's what I need because I need those to be exactly the same. Good stuff. I can bring that out in front now. Giving us 0.5 times the x minus 1. Again, color coordinated for you. Then we've got our 2x. And we've got our minus 1. So we go through and say 2x minus 1. Factored form right there. Fractions actually tend to be a little bit easier to work with than decimals. Because all we got to do is we've got to remove 1 over the the LCD, sorry. So we need to take out, factor out 1 over the LCD, which in this case is 1/3. We're going to factor out 1/3 in front. Well, if we factor out 1/3, that means we're dividing by 1/3. Dividing by 1/3, dividing is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So if we have 1x squared, 1 divided by 1/3 is actually 3x squared. We can check that by saying if I multiplied 1/3 times 3, do I get back to the 1? Yeah, I do. 1/3 of 3, that's 1. Minus 17 over 3 divided by the 1/3. Hey, the whole point of this was to get rid of that denominator. Then minus 2. Minus 2 divided by 1/3. Minus 2 multiplied by 3. Minus 6. Good. Now, can you take out any GCF out of the 3, 17, and 6? No, you can't. We're going to factor straight from here then. So sum equals the negative 17. Product equals 3 times negative 6, negative 18. What two numbers multiply to negative 18? Boop, add to negative 17. Well, the two factors that we can get are going to be, we know that one has to be positive, one has to be negative, and the larger of the two numbers has to be negative. So we've got negative 18 and a positive 1. Those aren't the answers. Those are the decomposing of the middle term. So again, 1/3 bracket 3x squared minus 18x. I'll always recommend you put the negative 1 first. If you got a negative and a positive, put the negative 1 first. Less mistakes get made. Put negative factor first. Okay, keeping it going. Plus 1x. Don't forget the x is in the middle. Minus 6. That's been decomposed. Now again, group the first two, group the second two, and continue on. 1/3. I like to put square brackets at this point. From the first two, I can factor out 3x, leaving me with x minus 6. Second one, I got no GCF at all. I can't factor anything out. Oh, but wait, I got to factor something. I'm going to factor out a plus 1. I don't have to change the signs because it was positive, negative, positive, negative. The pattern of signs is the same in both of those two groups. So we're good to go. Now again, we do the same thing. I got the x minus 6. Those are exactly the same. Factor that out in front. But we still have a 1/3 kick in it. X minus 6. Color coordinate that again for ya. And then 3x and plus 1. Bring those ones through. 3x plus 1. Factored form, yeah. How do you know you factored it correctly? How can you check your work? Figure that out. Okay, that all was review. Nothing new was brought forward in that section. Now we're going to be looking at what happens if there's brackets inside and we're asked to factor, such as this one right here. Well, what's really happening is we've got some function inside of the other one. We've got function notation as they're throwing it here. I'm going to not use f at x just because it starts making it messy. I'm going to use the capital letter A. You can use whatever you want. And I'm going to say the capital letter A equals the x plus 3. I'm going to throw it in there and factor from there. Okay, let's do these ones. First one, factor regularly. Sum is 5. Product is negative 24. Two numbers multiplied to negative 24 added to 5. They're going to be 8 and negative 3. I don't have to use decomposition method here, even though I could. But because it was 1x squared, I can jump straight to the answer. X plus 8, x minus 3. Order doesn't matter between those two. All right, let's move to the second one. I've got a GCF that I could pull out between the 2, the 10, and the 48. So let's pull that out first. 2. Bracket. Leaves me with x minus 6 squared plus 5 times x minus 6 minus 24. There's lots of stuff going on in there. You know what? We got too much. I'm going to take one step back. And I'm going to clean it up right from here. I'm going to say, let capital A equal. You can use any letter you want. You want to use B, you want to use Z, you want to use the initial of your first name. Go ahead. Doesn't matter. Something other than X is a good idea. Okay, so let A equal x minus 6. So anywhere I see x minus 6, I'm going to put an A in its spot. So 2, there's an x minus 6. So A squared plus 10 times, look at that, there's another one. A minus 48. And now I can look at pulling out the GCF here. A little bit easier if you clean it up right from the beginning. So now we've got 2 bracket a squared plus 5a minus 24. Oh, that's the same question as in part A. I know the answer to that one. That's 2 times a plus 8, there's no x here right now, times a minus 3. But wait a minute, a is a figment of my imagination. I put it in there. I need to get back to the x. Resubstitute. Wherever you see an a now, put x minus 6. 2 bracket x minus 6 plus 8 times x minus 6 minus 3. Don't stop there. Don't leave it there. Go to the next step. Clean it up. 2 bracket x minus 6 plus 8. I can combine those. Okay, that's going to give me x plus 2. And then x minus 6 minus 3. Again, combine those together. That's going to give me x minus 9. That is done deal, factored form. So the question always here is, when do I do this substitution step? Here's the key. Here's the red flag. If the question says factor, and they've got brackets inside of your question, just like they do on this one here, that's when you're going to be doing your extra substitution step. So let's try this one out here. All right, let's use a different letter. We used A for B, so let's use B. Sure. Let B equal 2x plus 5. Clean it up. Put it in there. Wherever you see the 2x plus 5, oh, there it is, b squared plus 10 times, oh, there's another one, b minus 8. Cleaned up. Now let's factor. Any GCF? No. Look for that always first. Okay, so then we go sum of positive 10, product of 3 times negative 8, that there, negative 24. So I need to figure out my two factors. Multiply to negative 24, add to positive 10. One's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. The larger of the two has to be the positives. I need more positives there. It's going to be negative 12, oh sorry, positive 12 and negative 2. Those aren't the answers, those are the decomposing of the middle term. So 3b squared. Put the negative in first, less mistakes get made, minus 2b plus 12b minus 8. All right, bracket off your first two there, group them, group your second two, and let's factor out any GCFs. Okay, in the first one, I can take out a b, and that's it. Leaves me with 3b minus 2. In the second two, I can pull out a 4. And again, I've got positive, negative, positive, negative. I don't need to take out a negative. I don't need to change the sign. So I take out just a positive 4. Leaves me with 3b minus 2. Oh, good thing, because those two have to be the same factor. Let's bring that out in front. So now we've got 3b minus 2 times b plus 4. Again, let's just color coordinate for ya. Uh-oh, but wait. That b, figment of our imagination, that was just a placeholder. We got to bring back in our 2x plus 5. So then 3 times 2x plus 5. Minus 2. There we go. Always substitute with brackets. 2x plus 5 plus 4. And clean up inside there. Please clean it up. We got to distribute this in. Giving us 6x plus 15 minus 2. 2. Oh, I lost my x there. 2x plus 5 plus 4. Last step. Combine our like terms inside there. 6x plus 13, is write it correctly, and 2x plus 9. Woo! Got her Done. All right, to finish off number 4 here, we've got a special type of factoring going on. Notice that we only have 2 terms, and we always are going to have a minus sign in the middle. Look at it as well. Squared and squared. This is going to be known as the difference because it's got a minus in the middle of squares. Because the first term and the last term are squared. Okay, well, whenever you factor a difference of squares, it always factors to conjugate binomials. Meaning, this one factors into a minus b, a plus b. Square root of the first, square root of the last, plus and minus signs, opposites in the middle. Done. That's it. Let's go on to part B. Hey, we've got a difference of squares, and we've got those brackets. It tells factor. We got brackets. Whoa. Red flag. As soon as we have that, we're doing a substitution step. Before we even start, let's let A equal the first one. We're going to let B equal the second one. They're not the same in the brackets, so we have to use 2 different letters. We've got A squared minus B squared. I like to use capital letters because they don't often give you capital letters in the question. So when you get to the end, it'll remind you, put it back in. Okay, factor that. That's A minus B, A plus B. Some of you can do it without this substitution step. Go ahead, do it. Factor in there with brackets. 3x plus 4 bracket minus bracket 2y minus 1 bracket times A 3x plus 4 bracket plus B 2y minus 1. Here's the step that people make mistakes on. You gotta distribute that negative in. Let's clean it up and take away the inside brackets. 3x plus 4 minus 2y plus 1. There's the key there. Multiplied by 3x plus 4 plus 2y minus 1. Collect any like terms that you have. 3x minus 2y plus 5 multiplied by 3x plus 2y plus 3. That is our factored form. If you would have expanded here at the beginning, you would have been hooped. All right, I recommend you pause. You try this part C1 yourself, and then see if you get it right. Here we go. We've got an A, we got a B. You can use any letters you want. I'm just going to stick with A and B. Let's clean them up. So 27a squared minus 75b squared. Oh, hey, I got a squared, I got a squared, I got a negative in front. But wait a minute. 27, not a perfect square. 75, not a perfect square. But the first step of factoring is GCF. Don't forget about that. Can I factor anything out? Sure can. Let's factor out a 3. 3 bracket leaves me with 9a squared minus 25b squared. Oh yeah, 9 and 25, those are perfect squares. Good to go now. So that's going to be 3 bracket. Square root of 9 is 3a minus square root of 25, 5b, 3a plus 5b. Hey, if you want to check, expand that, make sure you get the line above. But we got to now put back in all of what we substituted. So 3 bracket 3 times 2x minus 3 minus 5 times y minus 4 times, running myself out of room, 3 bracket 2x minus 3 plus 5 times y minus 4. I apologize for that. Didn't plan myself ahead there. I'm going to jump way down just to clear it up. Equals 3 times. Distribute in the 3, distribute in the negative 5, distribute in the 3, distribute in the positive 5. So we got 3 times the 2, so we got 6x minus 9 minus 5y plus 20, bracket, 6x minus 9 plus 5y minus 20. Clean up anything inside that you can for common factors there. 6x minus 5y. I can take the negative 9 and 20. Ooh, plus 11. 6x plus 5y minus 29. That was fun. All right, you got your 2 discuss the questions. Write down something in there so that you can see what you've learned here. And we'll see you in class.